Hey everyone, welcome to Feedback Friday number 2. Super excited about this one. I got 5 songs this week that we're going to talk about, and they're all in one video this time. First of all, if you don't know what this is part of Feedback Friday, which is a weekly feature that I'm doing on my Facebook site, facebook.com/holisticsongwriting, where you can comment one of your songs below the picture that says Feedback Friday, and you get feedback within 24 hours. So all the links to all the songs are in the description, so make sure you listen to them first before you listen to the feedback, otherwise it won't make much sense. So here's the process that I'm going through. I've gone through all of your songs and just wrote down what stood out to me. Good and bad is basically, I mean, there is no good and bad, really. It's my opinion, of course, but it is an opinion that's based on a lot of writing experience and on 6 years of conservatory. So, but it is still my perception of your song. So someone else might have completely different feedback on it and might still be right or wrong. We all are just saying what we think, right? So, yeah, one more thing. I urge you to listen to everyone else's feedback as well, not just to your own, because this really gives this whole feature, the Feedback Friday feature, what I call the C factor, the conservatory factor. One of the biggest things that I liked about going to a conservatory is that you get to hear a lot of bad music. And I'm overdoing, exaggerating this slightly, of course, but it is great to be able to hear music before it's really finished, because up until that point it's really hard to really hear music that isn't perfectly produced and radio ready. And it is important to listen to music that isn't perfect yet, because you realize just how many things need to fall into place before you get a great song. And I learned so much from the other students at my conservatory just by listening to their songs and being like, oh, that's terrible. What did he do? And like, oh, I guess that's something I never thought of, but that's something you really shouldn't do. So you just learn a lot by listening to others' mistakes. It's just as good as your own, really. So let's start with the first song, which is Jambrains' Never Mind to Keep. Jambrain, thank you again for contributing your song this week. I really enjoyed this one as well. I love the piano in the beginning. I think the punches work, like when everyone when everything punches in together. That sounds fat and thick, and it has that impact that you want. The guitar solo is really nicely worked into the song this time, and it's a really nice solo. Overall, the timing is much better than last week. Good job. I don't know if you played all the parts by yourself or that was with that feature of yours, but the timing here works much better. I really love that part after the solo. I really love that riff and those harmonies that you're using in the vocals. That's really cool. Something I wrote down for on the negative side at first, but actually I listened to it again and I actually like it, which is, so I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not, because I was a little bit indecisive about it at first. I'm talking about your loose structure. Your structure is your chorus isn't really clear at first, I thought it was a pre-chorus when I first heard it, and I thought that that part that comes right after it with the distorted guitars was your chorus. But it turns out that no, it isn't. And it's cool. I mean, it works. It drives me through the song. So your lyrical storytelling works. But I personally personally shy away from stuff like that. I personally try to make it really clear. Now you're listening to the chorus. Now you're listening to the verse. Now you're listening to the bridge, etc. But it works. It's just a question if some people would like a clearer chorus. That's maybe the only issue that I have with that. But I still think it's an interesting structure, and it does work, as I said. As I said, the lyrical storytelling works. I really like that fade in of the synth in that soft piano part, right in the middle of that song, which adds some tension towards that next peak. That was really nice. Dude, I love your voicings on your drums. You really got that down. There's some really cool stuff happening there. You got some nice guitar riffs, like that chorus riff I really like, and it's a good ending. So let's get to my feedback, or things that I heard that I didn't really understand, or maybe you had an idea with it, but it just didn't translate, to me at least. So first of all was the pluck sound on the guitar in the very beginning of the song is really loud. You can hear the the finger striking the string, which I don't really like. So I would EQ that out personally, which is something, I don't know where that is exactly, but it's like, whatever, it's like 2K or something, and just pull it down a little bit. So you just do like a frequency sweep and see where that sits. Then again, don't be afraid to make your guitars smaller. Meaning, for example, like I really like starting off songs really sparse. You know, right now you have a huge acoustic guitar sound in the beginning already, and I always think, yeah, well, where are you gonna go with that? Like in the mix, like this is it. Like you can add stuff, but it's full. You know, it's a big sound. So what I suggest is, why not use that guitar, make it a little bit smaller, you know, take out some of the bottom, and just, for example, pan it all the way to one side, and then have the vocals sit really nicely and fat in the middle. That's something I do all the time, and I think it sounds really nice. So don't be afraid to be a little bit extreme with your panning, for example. So start off simple, start off sparse, and then add to it later on. Your synth is very aggressive. I personally would take out the attack a little bit. Like the first time it kicks in, I'm like, whoa, this is a little bit too much, and it kind of has it kind of sounds a little bit old-fashioned too. So I think taking out the attack a little bit would probably help with that. Oh yeah, there's one thing on. Unfortunately, I don't have it. I can't think of the melody right now, but there's one note that you don't want to use in. Oh yeah, I think it's in the first verse, and it's on the line "never seen." Like it's on the two words "never seen," and there you're singing, or your singer is singing an avoid note. So make sure to change those notes to something else. I think I remember it now. It was, I'm not exactly sure, but I think it was an E minor chord, and he sings a C on top of that, which doesn't work because then you get the friction between the B of the E minor chord and the C, which just, that doesn't sound very nice. So just let him go to you know, a D, or you know, or even an E or something like that. But just make sure, or you could go down to a B. That's probably the closest. So that's probably your best solution right there. But make sure he doesn't sing that C, because that really clashes with the harmony. In the verses, yeah, that was another issue for me. Like that was probably my second biggest thing. What really stood out to me was really that avoid note and the chord progression in your verse, which I think is too predictable. Like that guitar pattern, it just, to me, it's not going anywhere, and I have a problem with that, because I like, as you know, with lyrical storytelling, I want my stuff to go somewhere all the time. And I think there's two issues that you have here. First of all, it returns to the one, so you have I forgot what the chord progression is, but it starts on the one and ends on the one. I think, I'm pretty sure, which takes out pretty much all the direction. And then also you have it's all eighth notes. It's all plugged and it's all eighth notes. So my suggestion is, for example, before the chorus, before the vocals set in, you know, have a strum or something, like just to break out of that eighth note pattern, like ga da da ga da, and then the vocals sit in. You know what I mean? Something like that, just to sort of make it a little bit more interesting and a little bit less obvious, a little bit less predictable. In the rock parts, I found the drums being very, very busy. I think you can take out especially some kick drums, because right now there's like, you know, a lot of double basses in there, double kicks, and I personally don't think that's necessary. I personally think it always gets stronger if you take out stuff. So yeah, that's something I would take out some of those bass drums. You know, just make choices. Be really clear on every single note that you're playing, and take out all those, most of those double bass drums especially, and just focus on the ones that really add something to, you know, that if you want to give a certain accent on a beat, or if you want to, you know, I mean, you get what I'm saying, I think. So just focus on the important ones. Then I had the feeling that the bass and the guitars get in the way of each other. The bass is like huge in the mix, and then the guitars kind of get drowned out by that. I personally, and a lot of rock guitar engineers or producers, have it exactly the other way around. You almost don't hear the bass. It's really just there for the low end, and so they take out a lot of the highs and the mids of the bass, and the guitars are really the big sound, and that gives it more aggression, because the aggression doesn't sit in the bass, but it sits in the mids. So that's where the guitar sits. So I personally would take out a lot of the bass, like even the bass is still extremely loud, and seek that impact that you want more in the mids of the guitars. Oh yeah, back to the rock parts and about simplifying. This is because it's actually a larger point I would like to make. Find the power in the parts, not in busyness, right? What I hear you doing a little bit is that when you're in a high energy part, that you say like, oh, let's just play a lot of notes, and that's not necessarily a good thing. I think it's better to just play fewer notes, but place them very strategically so they convey power. You know what I mean? So again, search the power in the parts and in the rhythm and where you place your beats, not so much in busyness and just having everyone play. The drum part in the bridge is too complicated. Oh yeah. I remember this part. This is the part that I actually really like, but the one issue that I had with it was that the drums play this a little bit too complex part at first, and it takes me a while to get back into the groove. So because everything is already so complicated, and I would personally just have the snare hit on 3, just so you have a really clear backbeat. I think that would help it. And then the lyrics is my last thing that I have as a suggestion for you. I feel I could be a little bit clearer and more emotional. Right now, I don't really understand what the song is about. And I haven't really looked into it, and I haven't really tried analyzing it. I'll give you that. But I think from a first couple of times listening to it, I should at least get a general gist of what the song is about or how it is supposed to make me feel. And I didn't really get that from those lyrics. So I like the lyrics from last week a lot better because they were more specific and gave me some images that I could hold on to. You know. I have two more little tips that are not really. I didn't really notice them as negative, but maybe maybe you can use them in your song. The first one being, maybe you could introduce the choir from that part after the solo a little bit earlier. That's one thing I would experiment with a little bit. And yeah, and another thing that I personally love doing, which is a technique I found out from listening to a Katy Perry song called I'm sorry, we're talking about Katy Perry. It's a rock song. I understand that, but it's still a viable technique, no matter what the genre is. The Katy Perry song is Dark Horse, and in that song, listen to that song because it's super fascinating. There are vocals everywhere. There's no section in that song that doesn't have vocals of some sort, even if it's just an in the background. There's always vocals in the song, and what it does for that song is it gives it a lot of immediacy and gets it close to the listener, and I really like that. So if I want to write something really energetic, and I think this is a song that wants to be energetic, I try to put vocals everywhere in every section of the song, even if it's just really subtle. So you might think about using some oohs or ahs in the instrumental sections of your song. Anyways, just as anything else, just a suggestion. But again, thank you for your contribution, and hope to see you next week. Again, dude, take care. Next song is Ihor Volosenko's, I probably just butchered that, Billboard Live, which is an awesome song. I love this song, man. Way to go. I really, really love this. This is so tasteful. Like, this is just the word this is the word for your song, man. It's just tasteful. Like, everything from start to finish is just tasteful. It's got a lot of class. Particularly the vocals are just super musical, and I really dig that. There's, your just overall playing of instruments is great. Your solo is great, and just, again, very tasteful. You have a great sense of melody and groove. It's a nice atmosphere. You got nice lyrics, very nice lyrics. It's obvious that you're making clear choices, so you're not, burying the mix with, burying your vocals with tons of stuff in your mix. But you're very clear as to what you want and what you don't want. Love that. I love your chords. You obviously understand music theory very well. And your lyrical storytelling works, which is a really difficult in such a sparse setting. If you have only so few instruments, it becomes a very, very difficult feat to be a good lyrical storyteller. So that, I think, was the solution that you had for that was, I think, very smart. There's just one exception, and that brings me to my suggestions for you, because I did have some small suggestions that I think, again, it's just those small things. Doing a couple of small things usually makes the whole song a lot better, right? So my one exception for your lyrical storytelling was, I personally didn't feel like another verse after the solo was a very good idea. I think it's a little bit dangerous to go back to, something that we had so long ago, and it's going to feel a little bit disappointing, I think, to some listeners. So I personally would suggest going directly into your chorus, just to keep things going a little bit more, and it also shortens your song, which is, I think, always a good thing as long as it's not shorter than 2.5 minutes. I liked your mix. Yeah, so those were all my plus points. Now let's start with some of the things, some of my suggestions. First of all is melody. The first thing is, and it's, I think, in your first verse, is there was a line, "How good my life could be," in the first block of lyrics, this way. In the first block of lyrics, and in the second block of lyrics, you have that line, the last line, "If I knew that I could win." And if I'm not mistaken, I might be remembering this wrong, but the first time I think you end on the third of the chord, and the second time you end on, well, you also end on the third of the chord. And that, to me, is a shame, because ending on the third, to me, sounds like a question. It's open. It's not a resolution, or not a complete resolution yet. So what I would have done, I think, is end the second set of those lyrical blocks on the 1, because then you get a question and answer, and that is something I love doing, and it sounds really round. But I do love that you ended on the 3 and not on the 1 in both of those cases, because that's what a lot of people would do. And then it's like you get like a sort of bow here, and then you get another phrase here, which is kind of boring and sort of takes the tension out of the whole thing. But if you have question and answer, you get one bow over the entire phrase, which I really love. So I think you're halfway there. Just change this, "If I knew that I could win," let it end on the 1. I personally think that would make it a little bit stronger. Yeah, this was a big one, because your harmony is so checked out, everything works so well, but then there's one bit where I was like, this sounds really strange. And what you're doing is you're singing a minor third in a major chord, which is, well, it's a sharp 9. Some people would say, well, that's just jazz. To me, it didn't really work here, and that's on the line, "Sing blessings from behind that darkened glass." And specifically, it's those 3 words, "from behind that," because those are the notes that you're singing a minor third on, and it's a major chord. So I just I personally didn't like that too much, and I also really didn't like that 4/3 resolution in the guitar there either. But that's, well, the 4/3 resolution, up to you. But personally, I would change "from behind that" to a major third. I think that would sound nicer. What's that? Oh yeah. What about using a different voicing in the drums for your chorus? I think that would probably improve your lyrical storytelling, to just lift that chorus up a little bit and just to make it a little bit different. So maybe I think you're on the right all the time, right? I might be wrong here, but maybe go to an or add an open hi-hat or something like that, or something. Just maybe change it up just a little bit. But this is more of a suggestion than something that I really noticed in a negative way. The ending came off a little bit uninspired to me. Maybe because everything else is so checked out, and then the ending is just sort of trails off. Maybe you could end on a line, so end with an immediacy. You know what I mean? Just end on the last line of your chorus or something like that, with the music dropping out a little bit earlier, something like that. I don't really have it in my head right now, your chorus, but that's just a suggestion, something like that. Maybe, yeah, as I said, end on a line. In general, talking about your vocal performance, your vocals trail off. Like you sing da 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 da, sa da 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 da. It's like the volume just goes down. It's always, if you look at it, it's like starts strong and then sort of trails off. And I think that's because you're losing breath, and that's something that a lot of singers do. When I had vocal coaching, that's one of the first thing I was taught, is to never let, it's called never let the line go slack. That's what my vocal teacher said. basically, you want to keep that tension until the very end of the phrase, right? It should be pretty much the same loudness from start to finish in every phrase, because I don't know, it just doesn't have a really nice effect. That's just a general vocal technique. If you don't want to change the vocals, you could also just compress it more, just to bring those softer notes up a little bit. You could also de-S the vocals a little bit more. I felt like some S's were a little bit sharp, and some THs as well. The bass is maybe a little too thick for my taste, just a tiny bit too thick. And in the chorus, I felt like the drum part was written a little bit too complicated, maybe, with all those snares. Maybe go for either like a sort of roll, where you have constant alternating stickings on your snare, or go for, as I said, another voicing on the drums, but don't go for. It sounded like constant fills, and for me it was just a little bit too complicated. I prefer simple drum parts, as you may know. Then I didn't really understand why the snare is panned to the left. I didn't hate it or anything. It's just a little bit unusual, and it sounded really like sort of alone over there. So maybe you could just add some reflections on the right, just to, because it's fine. It's your artistic choice to put it on the left, but just to make it sound a little bit more like it's in a room, maybe you could, as I said, add some reflections on the right. So maybe just send it to a send, and on that send you pan it to the right, and then add a delay on it, so it's just a couple of milliseconds later, like not more than 30 milliseconds. Well, maybe 30 to 50. What else? Yeah, the backing choir, which I really love. I love those harmonies in your backings. Could be a little bit bigger in your mix. Don't put your Jaguar in the garage. Let people see it. Because this is one of the coolest things you have in your songs. And yeah, just let people see it. That's all I had to say for your song. As I said, I really, really loved it. There were some really cool things in there. I really loved the general atmosphere, and obviously you know what you're doing. So, way to go. I'm hoping to hear your songs again next week or later than that. But yeah, please let me know. Next song we're going to talk about is Crowd Pleaser by Rattling Moon. Or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe the band is called Crowd Pleaser and the song is called Rattling Moon. I'm not sure. Anyways, this is fun, because it's awesome. These are just a couple of kids who've posted this below this in the Feedback Friday section. And I really love this because I see myself in this very much from, well, 11 years ago now, when I started out with my band. And that's just awesome. Thank you guys for your contribution. I really, really appreciate it. That's really, really cool. And awesome that you're playing together. They're obviously, you guys are not on a super professional level yet, and that's totally fine. When I started out, I was way worse than you guys, and this is no joke. I really was, like, our band was just terrible, really, really bad. Not to say that you guys are terrible, but that you still have a little bit to learn. I think that's fair to say, right? But I really liked your song. I really liked your contribution. I have a couple of tips for you guys. Not so much in terms of songwriting, but more in terms of what to pay attention to in order to get the most out of your rehearsals. And the first of these things is, well, first of all, just keep doing it and you'll get there eventually. If you focus on getting better, you will get better. Just make sure you listen to what everyone else is doing. And this is probably my first advice to you guys, is to listen to each other more. Because right now your timing is a little bit off. Like I have the feeling no one's really listening to each other. And that leads to, well, everyone's sort of doing their own thing. And I think that's probably your biggest issue. So really pay more attention to each other. And here are a couple of my tips. I think that are probably going to help you most. When I was, don't let me say anything wrong, maybe 19 years old, we had a contest with my band, Site Switch. I think we made second place, but only because the audience voted us into second place. But the jury back then said to us, like, we had a really good feeling coming off the stage, and we had, like, it was so powerful and emotional. And the songs, I think, were really cool. I still listen to them today, and I think, yeah, there was a lot of really good stuff in there. But they said, this was terrible. Like, you pretty much did everything wrong that one could do wrong. And we were, like, really shocked. Like, really? I thought we were pretty good. Are we really that bad? And they said, your timing is just all over the place. And that wasn't, we hadn't really heard of timing before. Like no one really told us timing is something that you need to pay attention to. My guitar teachers were all, I mean, I had basically solo guitar lessons, right? It was never playing with a band. It was always solo guitar. So timing had never really come up. For me, it was this whole new thing. And the rest of my band had never had lessons before. So for all of us, it was this huge shock. Like, what is this thing called timing? There's a couple of things that you can do to make your timing better. Especially metronome exercises. Work with a metronome as much as you can, each of you independently and together with the band. So have a click running while you're playing. Your problem isn't so much tempo, as a lot of young bands have, and we definitely had that back then. You guys don't have that so much because you have a drummer who's pretty steady, which is really important. But make sure you are together more, you know, so everyone lines up. When you have a hit, it's not brum, but it's gum, gum, gum. You know what I mean? So that the bass drum, and guitar and the piano come in exactly the same moment. And this is just, I'm talking about a couple of milliseconds here, but that's something you have to practice, that you all are really together. And check out metronome exercises online. There's stuff like the disappearing click, which you should Google, and is it called the in and out click or something like that? We have 4 bars with a click and then 4 bars without a click, and so you have to play through that silence, and then after 4 bars, you know if you are still in that tempo, if you manage to pull it off. Some really great exercises. Just keep looking online. There's so much stuff out there on that. Talking about your vocals. I'm going to pick on your vocals a little bit, not to say that you did a bad job or anything. It's just that the vocals are so important in pop music that's why I'm going to spend a lot of time on this. You start off really nicely until about 46 seconds in. Then you're changing your sort of style into something that I call vocal chains. And this is something that I see a lot of beginners do, and I used to do this as well. Vocal chains are when you, this happens especially to people who start writing lyrics first and then start singing them to music, is that you have just that you're constantly there with your vocals, right? So a line might be ga da 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 ga da 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 za da 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 ga da 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 da, and that's just a chain of syllables, which is really hard to listen to. It might help to see vocals, and this was my big breakthrough, it might help to see vocals as just another instrument. And here, what you're doing in this song is that the vocals are basically doing the equivalent of a drummer just playing 16th notes through the entire song, which is really distracting. So give everyone else some space. That's really important. And you're doing it until 46 seconds in, but after that, it's just notes and notes and notes and notes and notes, and it's just a chain of notes. So understand that vocals are not, don't sit on top of a song, but that they're a part of it, and they're just like another instrument. So I guess that's my advice to you. So just think about that a little bit and try to understand that rests, not playing notes, is sometimes way better than playing a lot of notes. There was a pianist, I forgot who that was, but there was a pianist who used to say, everyone can play a lot of notes. I'm really good at the spaces between notes. That's where the magic happens. Something like that. I probably butchered that quote. But it's so true, you know. The space between notes that you're playing is so much more important than the notes that you are playing. And lastly, I just want to say, you know, keep playing. That's the most important thing. You know, music is like a snowstorm. You know, it blows in everyone's faces, but at the end, the people that end up in front are just the people who can hold their ground. It's not so much about pushing forward and stuff like that. If you can just hold your ground, and you just don't let anyone get you down, and just keep practicing, keep doing your shit, and stay true to your vision, and do what you want to do, then you end up in front, because everyone else is going to be, you know, pushed backward. Pushed backward. All right, that was my advice to you guys. Let me know what you think of that. Next is Sjlence's In Love with a Zombie. Yes, a zombie song. Awesome. There should be more zombie-themed songs out there. I haven't really heard many. And I've heard foodcore, which is heavy metal with lyrics about food. Like, carrots! Yeah, you know, that sort of stuff. So, zombie-themed songs, I haven't heard that many yet. Cool. there were three parts in particular, three sections in your song that I really liked, man, like really, really cool. And that was your pre-chorus, the I know you'd prefer to eat me part, and then especially the opening up your eyes, man, like that was definitely really, really cool. And one of the things that really stood out to me in your song is that your drum writing is fantastic. I love all these little details. It's very complicated, I will give you that. But it does, like, for me, it's on the brink of being, it's complicated, but it's so cool that I'm willing to be okay with that. So really love that drum writing. I think it's really original. You know, you don't hear that so much. So I personally really like it, and it's very modern approach to drum writing, which I love. So let's talk about my my things that I noticed that didn't really work for me, or that I didn't really understand. First of all, it's probably lyrical storytelling. In case you don't know what lyrical storytelling is, I made a video series on that, which you can find on my Holistic Songwriting channel on Facebook. The next couple of things I want to say are just all about your lyrical storytelling. The main issue I think I had with your song is that your chorus doesn't stand out enough. It seems like that could just be another verse or something. It didn't really have a lot of push. So, and if your chorus doesn't work, then the whole structure just sort of crumbles down, and that's really a shame because you have so many cool parts in your song, but structure is just so important. So I wrote a new structure for you, and just to sort of give you an idea, I mean, if you don't want to use this is fine, of course, but just to sort of give you an idea of how I would approach this same song with the same sections to make it sound more immediate, to captivate an audience better. So I would start off with the riff from the Open Up Your Eyes part. Just start off really strong with that riff, and maybe you have like a little intro with just, you know, where it's just the guitar and no band, and then really kick it with this Open Up Your Eyes riff. Then I would go to the intro that's in your song right now with just the bass, and then I would add the vocals to that intro. So you're adding guitars really early on in your song, which I think is a shame, because that really takes away that opportunity to open up your mix later on. So I would just start the first verse, just bass, drums, and vocals. I think that would really make your song much more interesting to listen to, because you're giving away so much so quickly. Then I would go into the chorus, which to me would be the Open Up Your Eyes part. That to me is just the strongest part. I love it. Everyone in the audience is going to be chanting and singing along, so that to me is a definite chorus, and I would use that as the chorus. Then I would use the pre-chorus from 39 seconds as a post-chorus, and then I would go back into the verse, but this time with the guitars. So basically, as you did it, then I would go back to the chorus, which is the Open Up Your Eyes part again. Then I'd go to, as you did it, into that bridge, into the I know you prefer to eat me part, and then I would end. So I would leave out that last chorus that you had in there and just end on Open Up Your Eyes 2 times, and I would think I probably would end on a riff. But again, this is just a suggestion from, I haven't really tried it, but in my head this will work. There's a couple of things, a couple of adjustments you have to make, definitely, especially from going to, from when you're going from that first verse with just bass, vocals, and drums to that first chorus. There needs to be some stuff happening to make that transition smoother. But I think that's going to greatly improve your track and really captivate your listeners much better than what you have right now. Then another thing is your verses, the vocals in your verses especially, don't really work for me yet, because they're not really groovy yet. And I know it's metal, but there's still groove. There's different types of grooves. There's light grooves and there's heavy grooves and everything in between. And I'm not talking about the light grooves here, like I'm not talking about funk and all that stuff, but I'm talking about heavy grooves. But there are still grooves even in metal. And your vocal line doesn't really groove. And I think the biggest problem with that is that you have too many notes. So the same advice is for the people before you. Make choices, you know, pick the best notes and leave the rest out. And I know it's hard, but what you have to do is you have to be able to, you know, take off half of your lyrics and be able to, with the remaining words, just say something that is worth saying. You know, cut it down to half of your lyrics, and then make that as great as you can, right? And make it really impactful. That's really all I had to say for your song. Other than that, I really liked what you were doing. As I said, I really loved those 3 parts, and I mean, loved them. Like, this is awesome. So, way to go. Again, lyrical storytelling is probably my biggest issue with it. And the groove in the verses, in the vocals doesn't really work. Again, take out the notes, make choices. The last song for today is Neil Connor's Fall. With the, 'cause the bigger they are, down, down, the harder they fall. Cool, man. That's such a cool line. I love that line. Which is already my first thing that I have to say to you. Why are you calling your song Fall? Why don't you just... Fall is such a generic title. Call your song The Bigger They Are. I think that's such a much stronger title, because I haven't heard that one, but I've heard Fall, my God, so many times. And that is your biggest line, so I would totally go for that. You want your audience to immediately have that line in their head when they read that title, right? And Fall, I don't really have that connection, but the bigger they are, like, the bigger they are, the harder they fall, I get that immediately, you know? I really liked your ending with the reverse guitars. I thought that was awesome. I liked your solos, like just musically. And here's what I think could be improved in this song. First of all, your biggest line, as I said, is that the bigger they are, the harder they fall. That's your biggest line. And I think that needs to come back way more often, because that summarizes your whole message, right? So have that come back a couple more times. And also end on it. You know, I would end my song with that line. That's your statement. That's your big message. So I think what we need to talk about here is the difference between a refrain song and a chorus song. I'm not sure if you do know what that means. So a chorus song is your typical pop song, right? It's the A B A B C B kind of song. We have verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. So you have basically the parts that repeat is a full section. But a refrain song is a song that has it's basically just verses, but all the verses end on the same or very similar line, right? Now your song sort of falls in between, because you do have a chorus, but you also have that refrain line, and but neither really work, in my opinion. So what I suggest is either turn it into a chorus song, or, and this is my pick, this will be my pick, make it a refrain song, add that, the bigger they are, the harder they fall, add that to a lot more of your verses, because that's something he needs to come back to. Oh, and something really important, did I write that down? Something really that's really important to me is, I think the first time you have that line, the bigger they are, the harder they fall, you have that guitar playing, and I love that. That needs to come back. That's one of the coolest things in your track, but you only have to do it once or maybe twice, and that's such a shame, because that, to me, is totally part of that hook. So do that, do that every single time you have that line, because that is your musical hook, and you want to come back to that. Anyways, so that's enough about that line. Let's talk about lyrical storytelling. In case you don't know what it is, you can check out a video series that I did on my channel, Holistic Songwriting, on Facebook. So, first of all, my first issue is the intro is very long. Cut it down. Half as long is fine. Use more drum voicings. Your drummer is always on the hi-hat, and that's a shame, because there's so much more to your instrument than just the hi-hat. So why don't you go to the ride? Why don't you go to, you know, a sort of splashy ride? Something like that. There's so much more that you could do that would really improve your lyrical storytelling. The double tempo in the beginning of the song comes as a big surprise to me. Really startled me, and I really didn't, personally really didn't like it. I think you have two options. Either you do that in your chorus. I don't know if that will work. I think I would just start right from the start playing double time. Maybe you could start with it in the second verse, but definitely don't start off standard time and then go into double time after, 8 bars. To me, personally, that really didn't work. It was really like a, oh yeah, okay, I guess we're here now moment. And then another big issue that I had is wait with your distorted guitars until much, much later. Maybe in the second verse, or, you know, but just wait with those guitars, man. You have the beautiful acoustic strumming sound, which sounds really great. and then like already in the very beginning you're adding that guitar, and it's like, oh well, you know, my mom, when we watch movies, when my mom says you gotta, you know, if she makes a recommendation to watch a movie, she always says, like, even if it's a thriller, she'll always go, but don't worry, it ends well. They all survive. And I hate that so much. You know, it just bums me out. I don't want to know how it ends, because the part of the excitement is that I don't know, right? I want to know, will they make it? This seems really impossible. This seems a really impossible situation to get out of. And the same goes for songs, you know. I mean, you don't want to give away all your good stuff right in the beginning, and you are by playing those distorted guitars so early on. So you're giving them everything you got in the first 30 seconds, and that's really a shame, because there's not really much new stuff happening after that, and I think that's a real shame. You know, I don't know if you know this, but I'm a magician, and one thing I really learned from magic is performing, and magic is so fascinating because it really gives a whole new set of rules to making a performance as interesting as possible. And one thing I really learned from magic is that magic has a couple of rules, and one of the rules of magic is, well, it's stuff like never tell them the secret, but one of the rules of magic is never tell them what you're going to do. So magicians know that if they want to create the feeling of awe and sensation in their audience, they don't tell their audience what they're going to do. It's got to be a little bit of a surprise, and that's where it is. And the same thing really goes for music, you know. Never tell your audience what you're going to do, and if you add your guitar so early on, you are telegraphing it to them. That, you know, I mean, you're showing it to them right from the start. That's such a shame, you know. It's like I was doing a magic trick, and right at the beginning, I'm going to be like, oh, and this is what's going to happen. And everyone's just watching, because like, is it really going to happen or not? Like, but that's the only tension that there is. It's not really that intriguing anymore. You know what I mean? And if you want your songs to be magical, that's a clever little analogy that I said there, isn't it? But if you want your songs to be magical, I really suggest that's something you go for. Really hold back with a lot of your stuff until later in the song, so your song starts a life of its own. You know, it needs to get a life of its own, and that's what lyrical storytelling is. Really watch that video series on my holistic songwriting channel. And I suggest to also maybe buy the book, like, not promoting my product here. I know this seems like a really, I just want your money kind of thing. But for you, I really think it would help you. I really think, I mean, I wrote this book for people just like you. And I really, really believe that it would help you. But again, if you just want to watch the videos, that's fine with me too. Then I would shorten your song a little bit. Because right now it's, what is it, 5.5 minutes or 4.5 minutes? I would shorten it to 3.5 minutes tops. You know, maybe you can take out one of the solos. I think 3 solos in your song is a little bit too much, because you have that intro solo, then you have the acoustic guitar solo, and you have an electric guitar solo. That's a little bit, for my taste, that's a little bit too much. Then, so just cut it down a little bit. We have, and again, you know, just to make this really clear, I'm coming at this from a very commercial perspective, right? A very much a pop perspective. So my concern is like, will people understand this? Will people listen to this for the full duration? That's where I'm coming from. Whatever you want, do whatever you want to do. It's your artistic choices, obviously, but that's just where I'm coming from. There were some lyrics, parts in the lyrics that didn't really groove, or that didn't really sound that nice, and especially there was the line, something with ruin, didn't work. Ruin just isn't, to me, it just isn't a nice word. It just doesn't sound nice. Just the sound of it doesn't work for me. And there was one issue with too many syllables in stolen childhoods can't be returned, which just sort of, that didn't really work to me, for me. I think there was 1 or 2 syllables too many in there. Yeah, oh, here it is. The guitar after, because the bigger they are, needs to come back every time, because that is your hook. Yeah, absolutely. I'll say it again, that is just so important. Yeah, and then I said the 2 solos is stretching it. Yeah, yeah. That's it. Those were the 5 songs for this week's Feedback Friday, and I'm so excited that you guys sent in your songs, and I thank you so much for it. Every single one of you. I loved all your songs, and it was really fun analyzing this. One of the coolest things is I actually planned this Feedback Friday thing as a monthly thing, actually, like before I posted the first Feedback Friday, I actually thought let's maybe do this every month before, because I want to gather some people. But there's been 5 people this week, which is awesome, and I'm really enjoying myself doing this, and I hope you guys are enjoying this as well. If you are, would be awesome if you could share this video. Show your friends. I would personally really appreciate that if you could do that for for holistic songwriting, for yourselves as well, of course. And we have tons of more exciting stuff at Holistic Songwriting. So if you want to like that page, it would be awesome. Be my guest. And yes, I think I'm just talking now. So blah 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 blah. Take care, guys, and thank you for your songs. Cheers.